Hi, this is a brief introduction of the SAT exam. It is also called the SAT 1 or the SAT Reasoning Test. The SAT was once an acronym for Scholastic Aptitude Test, and later stood for Scholastic Assessment Test, but now is just the SAT. Well, it's not the SAT, but called the SAT. By the erudite. The SAT is a test taken by school students who want to take admission into an undergraduate program in a college or a university in USA and the Gulf countries. The American education system focuses upon the holistic development of personality of a student. They do not have a single-point focus on academics alone. Moreover, in an American program, the learning is not only driven by teachers and knowledge in books, but also focuses on peer learning and developing intellectual abilities in a student. So admission to the best colleges and universities in the U.S. is based on the complete profile of a prospective student. This profile is a function of numerical and subjective parameters. Numerical parameters include academic grades, GPA, scores on SAT reasoning test, and in some cases, the scores on SAT. 2s and advanced placements or APs may be required. Subjective parameters are more complex and include quality and participation in extracurricular activities, work experience, difficulty level of academic courses pursued, unique perspective a candidate may have, cross-cultural experience, leadership and team skills, the diversity a candidate may add to his or her peer group at the college, etc. Most of the subjective parameters are indicated by essays that a student needs to write. Letters of recommendation provide a neutral third-person assessment of the subjective parameters by the teachers and at times even by employers. As students applying to colleges come from diverse countries and different systems of education, backgrounds, academic subjects, which teach less or more of a certain area, so SAT scores provide a common objective numerical yardstick to compare all candidates. Good colleges are also concerned whether an admitted student would be capable of handling the academically rigorous programs offered by them. Past academic performance can predict future academic performance, so high GPA is sought. Past GPA and SAT scores take care of this concern, so they are important parameters for selection. Moreover, as top Ivy League colleges receive a huge number of admission applications, so an easy way to weed out reject a bulk of candidates is to use a minimal score on the SAT as a qualifier. This cutoff value of SAT score is higher for more competitive top Ivy League colleges and changes every year. Another factor in the admission process is the ranking organizations for colleges and universities. Students and parents, while deciding colleges to apply to, rely on reports of college ranking organizations. There are many ranking organizations such as U.S. News, Forbes, Business Insider, Council for Aid to Education, The Daily Beast's Guide to the Best Colleges, The Economist, Educate to Career Rankings, Faculty Scholarly Productivity Rankings, Money's, Niche, etc. The ranking organizations give a lot of weightage to SAT scores of students admitted to an undergraduate program to decide on ranking of a college, so colleges are under pressure to admit students with higher scores on the SAT. Even within USA, apart from SAT, another optional exam called ACT is available. SAT and ACT have different syllabi and different levels of acceptance in different colleges and universities. They also measure different skills. The universities on the East Coast, West Coast, Texas and Alaska have colleges and students who prefer the SAT. This is also the area where all the Ivy League colleges are located. So if I talk about the 8 Ivy League universities, Harvard, Yale, Pennsylvania, Columbia, Dartmouth, Cornell, Princeton, and Brown University, then all of these 8 Ivy League universities are located on the east coast of USA, which is predominantly an SAT-preferring area. So if you are a good high-achieving student, looking for admission in the Ivy League colleges, then SAT should be your choice of test. The universities in the middle of USA prefer considering the ACT scores as part of their admission process. But I firmly believe that the best way to compare SAT and ACT is to check students admitted to good colleges, whether more students were selected based on SAT scores or ACT scores. Even among good colleges and universities which accept both SAT and ACT scores, out of the actually admitted students a whopping 85% to 94% submit SAT scores. For you as a student, you are still advised to select courses, colleges and universities as a first step and then see which test is needed or preferred there. The SAT is an aptitude test for college admissions. An aptitude test is a modified intelligence quotient test or an IQ test to check whether a candidate has the desired potential and attitude for pursuing a certain academic course. Scientists believe that intelligence at the time of birth depends on heredity, that is, the genes from parents. If your parents are intelligent, then you would be born intelligent. But this is not the whole story. After birth, your intelligence keeps on increasing fast because you use your brain. As you use your brain more and more, your brain becomes a well-oiled machine and gets sharper. So, you need an environment which propels you to use your brain and become intelligent. Such an environment is called an enabling environment. Moreover, scientists have observed that intelligent people seek enabling environments that would make them sharper. So it is a reciprocal relationship also. Every IQ test measures 4 broad areas: language, numbers, reasoning, and hallmarks of intelligence. Psychologists who design and analyze IQ tests are called psychometricians. These psychometricians believe that learning a language is such a difficult task for the brain that proficiency in a language becomes an indicator of sharpness of brain. So testing of language abilities is part of every IQ test. The presence of evidence-based reading and writing on the SAT is a reflection of this belief. The psychometricians also believe that mathematics is a difficult subject and becoming proficient in mathematics makes the brain a well-oiled machine. IQ tests are not focusing on subject knowledge of mathematics or your ability to handle long calculations, so the mathematics appearing on IQ tests does not check for difficult mathematics concepts and long calculations. What appears on an IQ test in place of mathematics is given a different name and is called as quantitative ability. It checks easier math concepts and easier calculation ability. Reasoning is a third tested area on IQ tests. Now, reasoning may not have been taught to you in your school, but does not mean that you have not learned reasoning. Say, if you are hungry and you decide to eat food, or on feeling thirsty, you look for water, then you are already good at a fancy area of reasoning called deductive logic. The only thing you may not have seen could be how reasoning is tested, so that's what practice is for. We can attempt questions to see where are we thinking incorrectly and subsequently we can correct ourselves on that kind of a problem. Hallmarks of intelligence is a covert issue tested on IQ tests. Remember that SAT is an IQ test modified to the requirements of the college admission process. Certain questions test whether you behave like a really intelligent person with an IQ above a 150. Really intelligent people with an above-average IQ have a certain different way of thinking and approach problems in a different manner. For example, such intelligent people use a sequential objective method to reach a conclusion or a decision. This sequential objective method is required in questions of critical reasoning. Such intelligent people understand the concept of picking answers according to needs of scope and relevance to the argument in critical reasoning questions. Such intelligent people understand the importance of evidence-based reading comprehension and keep away from extrapolation and inductive logic. They also have a tendency to look for symmetry in constructing their sentences and keep away from politically incorrect or extreme language. They also do not rely on their memory and have an inclination for doing scratch work or rough work to calculate their answer accurately. Moreover, they use different strategies to do different kinds of questions. Actually, a question can be attempted by many methods, and the method which ensures that you take least amount of time and with least chance of making a silly or a technical mistake is called as its strategy. For example, They convert algebra questions into an arithmetic language to crack them, but in case of word problems, intelligent people convert arithmetic language into algebraic language to solve the questions effectively. If you do not do all these things automatically, you will have to learn them. We can help you in learning these hallmarks of intelligence. Moreover, as success in undergraduate programs need proficiency in critical thinking, argumentation, writing essays and understanding more complex instructions, so these abilities are also tested on the SAT. If you look at it holistically, then, on the SAT, you are tested at 3 levels. At the first level, a certain threshold of knowledge is required and tested. This could be comprised of certain concepts that you would already know and others which you will have to learn right from scratch. If I talk about grammar skills needed for paragraph improvement and sentence improvement questions, then your school may have taught you parallel construction but may not have taught you whether you can break rules of parallel construction in certain situations. You may know subject-verb agreement, but how do subject-verb agreement rules play out in a subjunctive mood may be something new for you on the SAT. Moreover, SAT is its own set of rules which are not available in books or in public domain. For example, how do you prioritize rules, which means if all the given options have a different error, then what answer do you choose? Another complication in terms of knowledge is that the SAT is an American exam with an American context and has been designed for a typical American student. So some biases against a non-American student do creep into this exam. You need to be aware of these issues. The second level of testing on the SAT is hallmarks of intelligence. Remember that SAT is an IQ test modified to the requirements of the undergraduate college admission process. Certain questions test whether you behave like a really intelligent person with an IQ above a 150. Really intelligent people with an above-average IQ have a certain different way of thinking and approach problems in a different manner. For example, such intelligent people use a sequential objective method to reach a conclusion or a decision. This sequential objective method is required in critical reasoning. Such intelligent people understand the concept of picking answers according to needs of scope and relevance to the argument in critical reasoning questions. Such intelligent people understand the importance of evidence-based reading comprehension and keep away from extrapolation and inductive logic. They also have a tendency to look for symmetry in constructing their sentences and keep away from politically incorrect or extreme language. They also do not rely on their memory and have an inclination for doing scratch work or rough work to calculate their answer accurately. Moreover, they use different strategies to do different kinds of questions. Actually, a question can be attempted by many methods, and the method which ensures that you take least amount of time and with least chance of making a silly or a technical mistake is called as its strategy. For example, really intelligent people convert algebra questions into an arithmetic language to crack them. If you do not do all these things automatically, you will have to learn them. We can help you in learning these hallmarks of intelligence. The third level of testing on the SAT is test-taking dynamics. After you have practiced on a lot of questions, and know how to crack them impeccably, it may still not translate into a perfect score. Because during the actual exam, performance anxiety encourages you to make mistakes. Moreover, you may not have the mental stamina to use your brain for a 4-hour-long test. Under test conditions, you make a greater number of silly mistakes because of 4 reasons. These are test anxiety, lower attention span, less stamina, and newer format of exam. Let's understand these 4 issues and their solutions. 1. In terms of anxiety, just the thought that we are being tested causes butterflies in our stomach. This performance anxiety affects your scores badly. So attempt as many simulated exams as possible so that you become immune to anxiety. 2. Understand what is a lower attention span. You have an attention span of 1 hour, but this is a 4-hour exam, so after the first hour, you feel like taking a break to perform better later, but you are not permitted to do this. To increase your attention span, get into the habit of using your brain continuously for longer stretches of time, without even taking a moment's break during your study. Learn to study without distractions such as your cell phone ringing or anyone barging into your room while you are studying. 3. In terms of stamina, after an hour or two of testing, your brain gets tired, so questions seem more difficult to understand and solve, leading to more mistakes. Here also the solution is to study for longer stretches of time, without taking breaks. Remember, you are preparing for a marathon and not a 100-meter dash. 4. Lastly, as the SAT has a different format of exam, so taking an exam divided into several sections, where you can only work on one section in a stipulated time, works against your scores. The solution is attempting greater number of mock exams, 15 to be precise. This gives you a grip on SAT testing and makes you immune to the pitfalls. Moreover, analysis of each test by the student followed by analysis by the teacher helps to identify the gray areas that need focus. The SAT is a 4-hour and 10-minute long test which includes 3 hours and 50 minutes of testing time and 2 5-minute breaks. Except for the essay, rest of the exam is objective in nature, mostly multiple choice, and some grid-in questions where you need to write down the answer. The exam is divided into 5 sections: reading section, writing and language section, 2 math sections, and essay section. The multiple choice sections can appear in any order on test day. The order of sections is random, and your test will be different from that of the person sitting next to you. The test starts with a reading section of 65 minutes followed by a writing and language section of 35 minutes. This is followed by a 5-minute break. The third and fourth section on the SAT are math sections. In the initial math section of 55 minutes, you are permitted to use a calculator, while the later math section of 25 minutes, you cannot use a calculator. Now if you decide not to attempt the essay, then the exam is over for you. But if you decided to attempt the optional essay section, then after a break of 5 minutes, you are given 50 minutes to write your essay. Now let us understand what kind of questions will appear in these sections and what can they probably test us for. The reading section contains questions on reading comprehension for a duration of 65 minutes. It has 52 multiple choice questions with 4 options. These questions are based on 2 normal passages, 2 passages with supplementary material in the form of tables and graphs. These informational graphics portray information related to the content of the passage. You will be asked to interpret this data and combine it with the information presented in the text. And there will be a dual passage, which also contains some questions based on both the passages. This is an example of a reading section question. It looks pretty much like the reading comprehension questions done back in school, but on the SAT. The questions are trickier because of confusing language which encourages you to choose a wrong answer. You can pause the video at this stage, so that you can browse through the question better. Passages are 500 to 700 word long and will also range in text complexity, meaning that the reading material on the SAT ranges in difficulty level from high school to college level texts. Passages will be chosen from U.S. and world literature, history, social studies, and science. One set of history, social studies, or science passages will be a pair of shorter passages instead of one longer passage. History, social studies, and science passages can also be accompanied by graphical representations of data such as charts, graphs, tables, etc. All passages will be taken from previously published sources. Graphics accompanying passages can be taken from published sources as well, but may also be created for the exam. The multiple choice questions for each passage will be arranged in order from the more general to the more specific, so you can actively engage with the entire passage before answering questions about details. The questions on the reading section are technically of 3 types: analysis-based questions, command of evidence questions, and the vocabulary in context questions. In case of analysis-based questions, ability to summarize the passage is tested, wherein you need to have clarity to differentiate between reasons and a conclusion, or differentiate between a theory and situations where it is applicable. You also have to determine explicit and implicit meanings without extrapolating. Some questions may even ask you to understand the rhetorical tools, whether their choice was correct, and relate information from two texts, as in dual passages, or correlate information in passage with an information graphic with quantitative information. Other multiple-choice questions will test your command of evidence. Such a question will be secondary to conclusions you reached in a preceding question. It will ask you to find the best support for your interpretation of the passage by citing the most relevant textual evidence listed in the answer choices. Questions that measure your command of evidence will be phrased along the lines of, which choice best supports the answer chosen for the previous question you have already answered. Some multiple-choice questions will ask about relevant words in context. These questions will test your comprehension of how a word or phrase is used in the context of a 500 to 750 word prose passage in any of the aforementioned subjects. These words will be neither particularly obscure nor specific to a certain field of study. Rather, you will be asked to figure out the meaning of the word or phrase based on the context in which it is used. The SAT Writing and Language section is basically a paragraph improvement section. The passages provided are not perfect but are basically a first draft prepared by some author and may require some revisions and improvement for better expression of ideas or to remove errors in sentence structure, usage, or punctuation. These passages or individual questions improvements may be accompanied by supplementary information, in the form of tables or graphs that need to be considered as you make revising and editing decisions well. To handle these questions, you have to be good at American English grammar and usage. The SAT Writing and Language test has 4 passages that are written specifically for the test. Each of these passages is 400 to 450 words long and is followed by 11 questions. Some passages and/or individual questions will refer to one or more informational graphics such as tables, charts, graphs, etc. Questions associated with these graphical representations will ask you to revise and edit the passage based on the data presented in the graphic. Such questions will only require analysis of existing data but will not computation in any manner. There will be one passage from each of the following subject areas: history or social studies, careers, science, and humanities. All questions on the SAT Writing and Language section will broadly fall into 2 categories: 24 questions on expression of ideas and 20 questions on standard English language conventions. The 24 expression of ideas questions on the Writing and Language test will be based on development, organization, and effective language use. These questions can include sub-question types such as words in context, command of evidence, and analysis of history, social studies, or science. Please pause the video at this stage and check the given table for finer details. The 20 questions on the Writing and Language test will be standard English conventions questions. These questions focus on editing the passage's text to conform to standard written English conventions of sentence structure, English language usage, and punctuation. Please pause the video at this stage and check the given table for finer details. The math test has 2 sections interrupted by a short break of 5 minutes. Questions are drawn from the heart of algebra, problem solving and data analysis, passport to advanced math, and additional topics in math content areas. The difference between the 2 math sections is in terms of whether you have the permission to use the calculator or not. Moreover, the no calculator section has neither problem solving nor data analysis questions. Please pause the video at this stage and check the given table for finer details. Core algebra encompasses linear equations and functions, skills you will need in a variety of college classes, even those that fall outside the realms of math and science. There will be a total of 21 core algebra questions, 13 on the calculator section and 8 on the no calculator section, on the math test. Core Algebra content category will assess your ability to fluently apply and conceptually understand the given 10 topics. Please pause the video at this stage and check the given 10 topics of the syllabus. Problem-solving and data analysis questions will ask you to solve single and multi-step problems involving percents, ratios, and unit conversions, as well as interpret information presented in graphs and charts. There will be 15 problem-solving and data analysis questions on the math test, all of which will appear in the calculator section. In addition, the extended thinking grid in question set, worth 4 raw score points, will be a problem-solving and data analysis question. The problem-solving and data analysis content category will assess your ability to fluently apply and conceptually understand the following 14 topics. Please pause the video at this stage and check the given 14 topics of the syllabus. Advanced Math includes a variety of topics that cover content found in courses beyond introductory algebra. Most involve working with functions and parts of functions algebraically and graphically. There will be 16 advanced math questions on the redesigned SAT math test, 7 on the calculator section and 9 on the no calculator section. The advanced math content category will assess your ability to fluently apply and conceptually understand the following 15 topics. Please pause the video at this stage and check the given 15 topics of the syllabus. Some questions on the redesigned SAT math test do not fall into the aforementioned categories. Most of the additional topics will come from geometry and trigonometry topics. There will be 6 additional topics in math questions on the new SAT math test, 3 in the calculator section and 3 in the no calculator section. The additional topics in math content category will assess your ability to fluently apply and conceptually understand the following 11 topics. All math questions will be worth 1 point except for the extended thinking question set in the calculator section, which will be worth 4 raw score points. Please pause the video at this stage and check the given 11 topics of the syllabus. The essay is optional and is always at the end of the exam, as its own test. The length of time allotted for essay writing is 50 minutes. The redesigned SAT essay test will assess your college and career readiness by testing your abilities to read, write, and analyze a high-quality source document and write a coherent analysis of the source supported with critical reasoning and evidence from the given text in the form of a passage of 650 to 750 words. The single passage featured on the SAT essay test, a source text of 650 to 750 words, will be argumentative and aimed toward a large audience. Passages will examine ideas, debates, and shifts in the arts and sciences as well as civic, cultural, and political life. Rather than having a simple for or against structure, these passages will be nuanced and will relate views on complex subjects. These passages will also be logical in their structure and reasoning. It is important to note that prior knowledge is not required. The redesigned SAT essay prompt will ask you to explain how the author of the presented passage builds an argument to convince an audience. In writing your essay, you may analyze elements such as the author's use of evidence, reasoning, style, and persuasion. You will not be limited to those elements listed, however. Rather than writing about whether you agree or disagree with the presented argument, you will write an essay in which you analyze how the author makes an argument. 2 blank pages with lines are provided to write your essay in. The redesigned SAT essay test expects you to demonstrate 1. Careful analysis comprehension of the passage, 2. Discerning use of textual evidence to develop and support your own points, and 3. Clear organization and expression of ideas. The SAT essay test will be broken down into 3 categories for scoring: reading, analysis, and writing. Each of these elements will be scored on a scale of 1 to 4 by 2 graders, for a total score of 2 to 8 for each category. The reading score ranges between 2 and 8 and measures your abilities to understand the source text, comprehend main ideas, important details, and how they function together, correctly interpret the text, and use textual evidence like quotations and paraphrases to demonstrate your understanding. The analysis score of the essay ranges between 2 and 8 and measures your abilities to analyze the given passage and understand the prompt, evaluate the author's use of evidence, reasoning, and stylistic persuasive elements or other elements of your choosing, support your own claims or points, and highlight the aspects of the text most relevant to the prompt. The writing score of the essay ranges between 2 and 8 and measures your abilities to construct a thesis, effectively organize and transition between ideas, use varied sentence structure, use appropriate diction, word choice, maintain a consistent and appropriate style and tone, and utilize the conventions of standard written English. We know what kind of essay the SAT graders are looking for, and we'll tell you exactly how to write one in. Apart from the overall score in the range of 400 to 1600 for your math and evidence-based reading and writing, and a score range of 3 to 24 for your essay performance, the SAT also has several sub-scores and cross-test scores for more granular data. Actually, the test paper of the SAT is researched and designed in such a manner that when students take the test, their scores follow a bell curve, where a very small number of students get a score of 200 or an 800, but a maximum number of students get a 50 percentile score of 540. As the question paper has 5 levels of questions, is adaptive and uses a certain algorithm to ensure that the bell curve is maintained. Let's understand, how can the College Board ensure that 50% of the students will get a score of 540? Even before a particular SAT has been taken. Since 1926, when SAT was started, all students did an experimental section. They did not know which section was the experimental, and their performance on it had no impact on their score. Within the testing industry, these questions are called pre-test, and the questions that count toward a student's score are called operational. When students take the SAT, suppose 95% of students get a particular question incorrect, then it will get assigned as the hardest or level 5 question. Similarly, if 95% of students get a particular question correct, then it will get assigned as the easiest or level 1 question. On the other hand, if 50% of students get a particular question incorrect, then it will get assigned as the medium or level 3 question. This mechanism ensures the College Board already knows before a single student has taken a SAT paper that 50% of the students will land up with a score of 540. This mechanism is what you need to beat and fall into the desired green region of the bell curve. On the present SAT also, to allow for pre-testing, some students taking the SAT with no essay will take a fifth, 20-minute section. Any section of the SAT may contain both operational and pre-test items. The College Board website and released document define neither operational nor pre-test. Nor does this paragraph make it clear whether all the experimental questions will appear only on the 5th section, at the start or end of the test, or will be dispersed throughout the exam. The College Board is less clear on this issue and suggests that experimental, pre-test questions can show up on any section. If you are an Indian student, then you are categorized as an ESL student by the admission committees, that is English as secondary language student. The language tests have been designed to measure the English language proficiency of such non-native English speakers. Admission committees officials are usually concerned whether a non-native English-speaking students would be able to excel in an international English environment. To clarify this issue, admission committees need scores on any one of the 3 tests, TOEFL, IELTS or PTE. SAT subject tests are 20 multiple-choice standardized tests given by the College Board on individual subjects, usually taken to improve a student's credentials for admission to certain colleges in the United States. A student may take up to 3 SAT subject tests on any given date at a flat rate $24.50, plus $28 for international test takers, and $13 per test, unless it includes a listening portion, then it is $24.50 plus $24 per test. Most SAT subject tests are offered on the same day as the regular SAT reasoning test, Therefore, students cannot take both the SAT reasoning test and subject tests on the same day. These are the only national admission tests where you choose the tests that best showcase your achievements and interests. SAT subject tests allow you to differentiate yourself in the college admission process or send a strong message regarding your readiness to study specific majors or programs in college. In conjunction with your other admission credentials, your high school record, SAT scores, teacher recommendations, etc., they provide a more complete picture of your academic background and interests. Some colleges also use subject tests to place students into the appropriate courses. Based on your performance on the test, you could potentially fulfill basic requirements or receive credit for introductory level courses. Each individual test is scored on a scale of 200 to 800. However, some of the tests are scored on such generous curves that it is impossible to get a 200. For example, if someone gets every question wrong on the Mathematics Level 2 test, he/she might receive a score of 310. It all depends on the version of the test. The Advanced Placement Exams or AP exams test students' ability to perform at a college level. Students who perform well can receive course credit and/or advanced standing at thousands of universities worldwide. Advanced Placement Examination is offered to Indian students in 24 subjects. The Advanced Placement Examinations are administered each year in May. Advanced Placement Exams test centers at Bangalore, Chandigarh, Chennai, Delhi, Hyderabad, Kolkata, Mumbai, and Pune. The tests are the culmination of year-long Advanced Placement (AP) courses. All but one of the AP exams combine multiple-choice questions with a free response section in either essay or problem-solving format. AP Studio Art, the sole exception, requires students to submit a portfolio for review. Advanced Placement Exams are administered by the American College Board in the U.S. for high school students. They may be recognized by Canadian institutions for advanced credit. The College Board's AP courses are college-level classes in a wide variety of subjects that you can take while still in high school credit and placement in college. Please see individual university websites for more information. HESAT is conducted 7 times in a year, in the months of January, March, May, June, October, November, and December. Please confirm the exact test and registration dates from the College Board website. You should decide on scheduling and preparing for SAT based on 4 parameters. The SAT tests a lot of skills learned till the 10th standard, so ideally you should take the SAT while the concepts are still fresh. Say, while you are in the 11th standard and do not have too much pressure of your class 12th exams. Taking the SAT while you are in the 11th standard also takes care of the second parameter. In case you are not satisfied with your SAT scores, you can still take the exam a second time. On an average, students improve their scores on SAT by 80 points on the second attempt. But the biggest parameter for planning the SAT is that you should have enough free time to prepare for the SAT wholeheartedly. Being an aptitude test, practice makes you perfect, so don't leave any stone unturned. Moreover, you should have ample time between the SAT and admission deadlines of colleges so that you can select colleges based on your SAT score and complete your admissions dockets for various colleges that you will apply to. There are several reasons why students who are supposedly good at English and mathematics in school have a problem in scoring high on the SAT, despite doing hard work. The first reason is that SAT is an aptitude test. Students are used to preparing for school exams which are heavily focused on knowledge and using the right procedure. Students make the mistake of thinking that working hard on conceptual knowledge and practicing a lot of difficult questions will get them good scores. If this is an IQ test, then you already have a good amount of intelligence, and this intelligence is measured by the number of mistakes you make. Moreover, IQ tests have questions with confusing language which encourages you to make mistakes. So the best way is to realize which kind of mistakes are you making and not to repeat those mistakes. This brings in the fastest score improvements. The second reason for low scores on SAT is that questions on SAT are conceptually easy but have confusing language. For example, in school exams, a difficult question of mathematics would test difficult concepts and would involve difficult and long calculations. Even a difficult question will not have confusing language to trick you, and it will be very clear after reading the question as to what is it asking for. Moreover, half the marks are for getting the right answer and half the marks are for following the right steps leading to the answer. So, when you see a mathematics question, you just jump into the question and furiously calculate till you get an answer right up to 2 points of decimals. Now the problem in an aptitude test is that a difficult mathematics question will test you for easy concepts and less calculations, but the language of the question will be so confusing that most of the students would think that the question is asking for X while the question may actually be asking for Y as the answer. The third reason for low scores on SAT is that SAT is an American exam with an American context and has been designed for a typical American student. So some biases against a non-American student do creep into this exam. You need to be aware of these issues. Benchmarking of performance can help in identifying the necessary rules that Indian students have not been taught in their schools and helps in realizing the need for test-taking techniques. Indian students need to be taught all the rocket science behind the questions. Some things are completely new, say parallel construction in American grammar, the objective way needed in critical reasoning, or transposition in coordinate geometry, and evidence-based reading comprehension, which are not taught at all in Indian schools. Some American concepts clash with whatever has been taught in Indian schools and colleges. For example, rules of subjunctive mood may clash with subject-verb agreement rules taught in our schools. Still, there are some concepts taught to us in our schools which also tested on these exams, so they may just need a revision. This has to be followed by application of concepts on questions. The fourth reason is that most of the test-taking techniques you learned and mastered back in school do not work on the SAT because of change of format of the exam. Back in schools, when you got the question paper at the beginning of an exam, you browsed through the whole question paper and decide what will you attempt first. If you get stuck on a question, leave it and attempt it later. If you got a question wrong, attempt it again. Attempt the paper with a frenzy and finish off as much as possible. And everything in the paper carries marks. But on the SAT, you can work only on one designated section during a time slot. You can't return to previous sections or check later sections. You can't change an answer. Questions in a section are arranged in an order of difficulty in sections. And there are a few experimental questions which don't fetch you marks. This is where our organization, Ivy League Career Services, comes in, to solve all of your anticipated problems. When Ivy League Career Services started helping students in 1994, we realized that there is a huge gap between education provided by educational institutes, such as schools and colleges, and the expertise needed to excel in competitive exams, careers and life. Ivy League Career Services helps students prepare for aptitude tests such as SAT, GMAT, GRE, and IIM-CAT. We also guide students in the complex application process for admission to premier global MBA programs and undergraduate and postgraduate programs in the U.S., through our admission consulting programs. Actually, the standardized syllabus followed in schools and colleges serves its need excellently well for the educational purpose for which it is designed. Aptitude tests such as SAT require not only a different set of specific knowledge and its corresponding application but also a certain attitude and approach which is needed to handle the academically challenging courses and the future careers based on them. At Ivy League, we know that aptitude tests such as SAT are designed by experts in psychometrics, a super specialized area of psychology, and not by teachers of English and mathematics. So all our test prep programs are designed by psychologists who are experts in psychometrics. We do not want to reinvent the wheel again. So we research the best of test prep programs available in the world and their pros and cons. and then we modify our programs according to class needs by the teachers who deliver the programs according to the needs of the students. Our psychometric experts know the tests inside out and help you beat them. We found two types of test prep programs available in India, those offered by American test prep organizations and others offered by homegrown Indian mom and pop joints. The American test prep programs are designed for an American student and they work best for an American student. All of the aptitude tests such as SAT have been designed on the American syllabus which an American student has just studied in school or in college, so an American student does not really need to study these concepts. As a result, the American test prep programs do not focus on teaching the tested knowledge part but rather focus on certain test prep strategies and tricks which can help in improvement of a weak or mediocre student's score. A typical American student wants the greatest ROI, or return on investment, so he is not used to working hard but wants a certain score improvement with least efforts. But good and hard-working Indian students do not see a worthwhile score improvement in these American programs as they lack the basic knowledge being tested. The Indian test prep programs do not focus on test prep strategies and tricks but unnecessarily teach whatever English and math they know. The teachers of Indian test prep programs do not even know that the exams are not focused on the English and math which they are teaching, but the tests just use the language of English and math to design questions. Students joining such institutes work very hard but are unable to get a good score improvement because these students still do not understand the dynamics of the test and have not been trained in test-taking techniques. A lot of such problems can be avoided by an extensive teacher training and certification program, but Indian test prep institutes don't have the talent needed to conduct them. American institutes have started franchises in India and train Indian teachers to facilitate the programs, but certification and jobs are given to anyone who doesn't ask for a higher salary package. Have you heard the famous saying, "When you pay peanuts, you get only monkeys," and such institutes have a lot of monkeys playing around with careers of students. The solution is in realizing the background and study behaviors of Indian students and benchmarking their performance according to the specific needs of the exam. Indian students are very hard-working and do hard work with the single target of the perfect score. Moreover, Indian students struggle with these standardized American exams such as SAT, GMAT and GRE as they are not familiar with American English and American context of the exams. Benchmarking of performance helps in identifying the necessary rules that Indian students have not been taught in their schools and helps in realizing the need for test-taking techniques. Indian students need to be taught all the rocket science behind the questions. Some things are completely new, say parallel construction in American grammar, the objective way needed in critical reasoning, or transposition in coordinate geometry, and evidence-based reading comprehension, which are not taught at all in Indian schools. Some American concepts clash with whatever has been taught in Indian schools and colleges. For example, rules of subjunctive mood may clash with subject-verb agreement rules taught in our schools. Still, there are some concepts taught to us in our schools which also tested on these exams, so they may just need a revision. This has to be followed by application of concepts on questions. This is where strategies for handling questions become important, as the multiple choice pattern and other designs of questions need specific strategies to avoid silly avoidable mistakes. This brings a quantum jump in scores. Now you attempt a lot of practice exercises to polish your skills. After you have practiced on a lot of questions, and know how to crack them impeccably, it may still not translate into a perfect score. Because during the actual exam, performance anxiety encourages you to make mistakes. Moreover, you may not have the mental stamina to use your brain for a 4-hour-long test. Simulated exams or mock tests are valuable tools to understand what's missing in your preparation, and, later, to realize that if you know everything, what changes you still need to make in the way you handle yourself during the real exam to get an optimum score. Mock exams do a final polishing and a student understands the test dynamics. Teachers are part of the solution as they facilitate the delivery of test prep programs. They need to be masters of the tested subjects, know how to teach the subjects, empathize with students to understand what confusion students can have in the subjects, and keep the learning comprehensive and interesting enough so that a student can meet all the demands of the test. The hardest part for us at Ivy League was to find the most efficient academicians in the test prep industry. We were surprised to find that the country's and the world's leading test prep organizations were the weakest in the most important part of delivery of their test prep programs: teachers. Because of impractical scaling up of their operations, teacher quality was seriously compromised. Any fresh graduate who would not be thrown out of classroom by the students had a confirmed job with the Test Prep Institute. Now the teacher learned from his own mistakes. After teaching for about 5 years, when he would become somewhat better, he would actually become too expensive for the Test Prep Institute to continue. This teacher would move out of the institute or be asked to leave because he would start suggesting changes to the test prep program, and these changes would come in the way of scaling up and markups. We bent over backwards to accommodate the most experienced faculty members to design and teach our programs. All our teachers have an average of 15 years of work experience. But apart from gray hairs, the deciding factor in selecting faculty members has been their excellent feedback and high standards of teaching ability. Another part of the solution is an effective study material and program design. We believe that the classroom teaching and study material have to comprehensively drive home concepts. Practice exercises should diagnose gaps in learning and give enough practice to become perfect, and have mock tests to master test dynamics. At other institutes, scaled-up operations mean that even when a test prep institute has practice material and realizes that students need practice material to work hard, still more practice exercises cannot be given as it would cost money. At Ivy League, we continuously prepare and polish up our practice material so that we can give a student as much of practice as needed to become the best. While designing our study material, we have only the needs and wants of a student in mind. This translates into a study material that effectively drives home every concept, and apart from a mandatory set of practice material, there is enough practice material for a very hard-working student who doesn't want any stone unturned. So, we believe that an ideal test preparation should entail the following. 1. The SAT is a modified IQ test or an intelligence test, and even before you start your preparation, you have intelligence. Moreover, you already have an exposure of English language and you have done a lot of mathematics till high school. So you will definitely be good at certain areas tested on SAT, while you may be rusty or weak at other areas. So, as a first step, we benchmark your performance by subjecting you to a simulated or mock test before starting your preparation. This should be followed by an objective critical analysis from an expert teacher to comment on issues which may not be in public domain. This helps in giving a realistic idea about the level of hard work needed and timelines to be maintained during preparation. Now, find the right set of books and a teacher who can make your learning challenging, comprehensive, engaging and fun. Learning and mastering the specific strategies and procedures to handle each type of question appearing on the real exam. This also entails identifying each type of question that appears on the real exam and knowing how to crack it by using its specific strategy and procedure. Now you understand all concepts and rules tested on the real exam and apply them on a certain number of real exam questions until you become perfect. Clearing the concepts with your teacher on each and every question, in which you make a mistake and cannot realize what went wrong. Identifying concepts that you tend to forget. And identifying questions where you tend to make mistakes. Then, practice questions under a time constraint to decrease your response time to handle questions. Your accuracy dips down as you work faster, so work on it and take progressive tests having multiple topics. After you have attained a certain level of expertise, start taking mock exams to understand test dynamics and how a complete exam affects your accuracy and performance. Issues such as lower accuracy when you attempt a multiple subject and multiple topic test, shorter attention span, low stamina to use brain actively for 4 hours, test anxiety and nervousness, etc. should be identified. Take more tests and address whatever problems you have. Keep doing mid-course corrections in your preparation based on mock test performance and analysis. Be clear about the dynamics of the test day and be completely prepared for it, in terms of what to wear, proctoring procedures, test center procedures, documents to carry to the test center, what to do if you suffer a test irregularity, mandatory breaks during the test and how you can use them to your advantage, what to eat or drink during the break, etc. Mock tests are the final step in your preparation and they can have a toll on your nerves. So, keep yourself cool, upbeat and objective. Visualize yourself responding to case studies at your dream school, when you get bugged or tired. Hence, we at Ivy League Career Services have tried to design classroom-based programs and one-on-one personalized attention programs which address these issues faced by students. We start with a diagnostic test or mock test to benchmark a student's performance and present position. The student receives a detailed analysis of performance to a subject, topic and question level. Once the program starts, students attempt a pre-class assignment to increase familiarity with a topic and understand the challenges involved. This is to pre-prime you up for the coming class. You don't have to learn the stuff in the pre-class assignment, instead you have to just read through it once to get familiar with the next topic to be taught in class. Another benefit of the pre-class assignment is that when the class starts, all the students in the batch are at the same threshold level from which the teacher can take things further easily. Now, the teacher teaches the topic in class and teaches every concept and sub-concept that has been tested on the actual exam previously. Class teaching is kept completely comprehensive, so if a topic such as modifiers and sentence correction involves 9 types of modifiers and 11 rules of modifier usage and 18 ways in which the questions can ultimately test you for modifiers, then we will teach you all of this stuff in class and make you practice it thoroughly through practice questions. Students are encouraged to take extensive notes during the initial concept teaching. Then teacher shows how to apply each concept on questions that test that concept. Now students attempt a certain number of questions in front of the teacher to identify any problems that still remain and these problems of the students are solved. The class ends with detailed written assigned homework of 2 types, questions to check knowledge of concepts tested on the exam, which have been taught in class, and questions to test application of concepts, real exam questions from the official sources. We follow a closed feedback loop mechanism to train you. We wouldn't just be happy that we have taught you the right stuff, but we will ensure that you have understood and learned it well. We would like to be a bit strict here and we will also check what you have learned and why are you not getting a 100% score. So the program has a lot of written homework, which is checked by teachers. Now, after the class, once a student is at home, the student revises class notes and has to attempt stuff from a practice workbook. The workbook has 3 parts: reiterated important concepts, to be revised and learned, concept tests, to identify whether you have learned all the concepts, and concept application tests, to check whether you know how to apply concepts on questions on each topic to identify whether a certain concept is not clear or application of the concept is not perfect. The workbook is submitted to the teacher, who carefully checks the homework and provides remedial actions. The remedial actions can be teaching the concept again, more classwork in front of the teacher and more homework. Your teacher clears the concepts on each and every question, in which you make a mistake but you are unable to realize what went wrong. In this manner each topic, concept and question type gets perfected. Now a student has to attempt practice questions under time constraints and has to decrease the average time taken per question. Attempting questions faster results in more silly mistakes also, so a greater focus under time constraints is the learning of this stage of preparation. As more and more topics are taught, a student gets ready for the next level of learning, multiple topic tests or progressive tests. A student needs to develop the ability to attempt a jumbled bunch of questions, random in terms of subjects, topics, concepts and difficulty levels, the way it appears on the real exam. This helps you to learn how to switch your mode of answering questions from one type to another. Say a problem-solving question designed on a word problem of time, speed and distance may need a different mode as compared to a plug-in question based on permutation and combination. The last level of learning happens by seriously taking a series of simulated exams or mock tests. The mock tests will point out the new test dynamics at play. Now, despite knowing how to solve each type of question, still under test conditions, you make a greater number of silly mistakes because of 4 reasons. These are test anxiety, lower attention span, less stamina, and unfamiliarity with the newer format of exam. Let's understand these 4 issues and their solutions. A. Test anxiety. Just the thought that we are being tested causes butterflies in our stomach. This performance anxiety affects your scores badly. So attempt as many simulated exams as possible so that you become immune to anxiety. B. Lower attention span. You have an attention span of 15 to 30 minutes, and normally you can comfortably use your brain at full potential for this short span only, but this is a 4-hour exam, so after the initial half an hour, you feel like taking a break to perform better later, but you are not permitted to do this. To increase your attention span, get into the habit of using your brain continuously for longer stretches of time, without even taking a moment's break during your study. Learn to study without distractions such as your cell phone ringing or anyone barging into your room while you are studying. C. Stamina. After an hour or 2 of testing, your brain gets tired, so questions seem more difficult to understand and solve, leading to more mistakes. Here also the solution is to study for longer stretches of time, without taking breaks. Remember, you are preparing for a marathon and not a 100-meter dash. D. Taking an exam on a new format is uncomfortable to a lot of students. You have always done subjective and knowledge-heavy tests, so attempting the SAT, which is an objective MCQ test, works against your scores. The solution is a greater number of simulated or mock exams, 15 to be precise. This gives you a grip on SAT testing and makes you immune to the pitfalls. Moreover, analysis of each test by the student followed by analysis by the teacher helps to identify the gray areas that need focus. We would even like to handhold you during the real exam, but that would be unethical and is not permitted. Luckily, you would be so prepared for the real exam that you won't need us during the real exam. Based on specific requirements of our students, we have designed 2 programs to help students effectively, a classroom integrated program and a one-on-one personalized tutoring program. The classroom integrated program may be recommended for you if you have 3 months to prepare for the test and you can attend classes at our classroom locations or learning centers. On the other hand, a one-on-one personalized tutoring program may be recommended for you if you have less time in hand to prepare for the SAT, say 1 or 2 months to prepare for the test. If you want complete personalized attention with real-time monitoring of your progress by the teacher. If you want to learn at your own pace, fast or slow. If you are a high achiever and are ready to work hard to get the best possible score on the test. Or, if you cannot attend classes on a regular basis and need more flexibility of time. In order to register for the SAT, you will have to go online at www.collegeboard.com. Check the available dates and test center and book up your test. Now, if you are interested in taking help from Ivy League to prepare for the SAT, or to handhold you in the complex admission process for the Ivy League colleges in the U.S., then send us an email at mail@therateofivyleague.us.com. In your mail, give details about what you are dreaming of and what preparation have you done so far. You can attach an updated resume and also mention everything about yourself that can help us give you more informed advice. Also write down your personal cell phone number and a convenient time so that we can arrange one of our senior faculty members to have a discussion with you and advise you accordingly. Thanks for watching this session and your interest in knowing more about the Ivy League.